Comox First Nation. We would like to thank them for the privilege of living on their land and the gift of working with their children. Good evening. It is Tuesday, March the 11th, 2025, and this is a regular board meeting of Comox Valley Schools Board of Education. And the first formal item on our agenda tonight is the adoption of the agenda.
Make the motion that the Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley adopt the March 11th, 2025 public board meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Howe, seconded by Trustee Aldinger. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next is the February 25th board meeting minutes. Trustee Les.
The Board of Education School District 71 Comox Valley adopt the February 25th, 2025 regular public board meeting minutes as presented.
The seconder, Trustee Maysack. Discussion? None. All those in favor? And that's carried with none opposed. We have no unfinished business. We have a record of in-camera meeting minutes, February 25th, 2025 regular in-camera meeting, and March 4th, 2025 special in-camera meeting. And we get to turn the page over on the agenda and move on to the board chairperson report. And I have a brief verbal report. Can't seem to get my legs under me to get my written report in time, so I apologize to everyone. But I had two items I wanted to speak to tonight. I attended the annual partner liaison meeting alongside our superintendent and secretary treasurer last week. The work being done across our province, being led by the ministry, is nonstop and ever changing. With the priorities of safety, learning supports, and excellence in education, as we continue work in so many complex areas, from the good work out of Bill 40 for Indigenous Education Councils to navigating the fast-changing world of cybersecurity. There's been some recent information shared in the media connected to some of our food programming stemming from our Feeding Futures funding to our students. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Thea Cockerton, our school food coordinator, along with our food service workers, school staff, and many parents who are refining, transforming, and creating meaningful food experiences throughout our district. Collectively, they are moving forward to work with the many partnerships that are required to utilize our funding dollars the best way possible to provide nourishing food that fuels both the body and the soul of our learners. And next on our agenda, we move to our presentations and delegation section. And a reminder that our presentations should be about 10 minutes in length and allow the opportunity for trustees to comment or ask any clarifying questions or curiosities of the presenters. And as always, once you're finished, you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting. And first, I'd like to introduce Genevieve McCrae King, who is doing a presentation tonight regarding rugby at GP Vanier. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for the warm welcome. I really appreciate it. I am Genevieve McCrae King. I am a mom to two very passionate rugby players. My youngest daughter is here tonight. She's in grade 10, and she's played with Vanier since she was in grade 8. And I have a middle daughter who graduated last year, and rugby is their life. So I'm here representing not only my own family, but other families who have reached out to me, as well as the community, and BC Rugby and Rugby Canada, who have also offered their support for this situation. So thank you for having me. I also want to mention that I am PAC chair at Vanier, and I'm not speaking from that position tonight because we haven't had a chance to meet to come up with an official statement. So just I'm here as a mom. Also speaking on behalf of League Rugby, so Rapids Rugby, the Kickers, Our community uses the rugby fields at Vanier considerably. We have a very limited amount of rugby space in the valley, and it is the fastest growing sport here. So we need to figure out ways that we can accommodate all this youth interest in rugby. Oh yes, I'm supposed to use the clicker. So also wanted to speak to Indigenous Rugby Day, which is a collaboration between SD71 and Rapids, another group who is accessing Vanier's fields. And so we're here, obviously, about this cricket pitch. As I understand it, the initial plan for the cricket pitch was a redesign of the whole field at Vanier. And I could be wrong because this is just coming to me secondhand. But the idea was that there would be a practice turf closest to the school, followed by a designated rugby multi-use field that would have been regulation size. And then there would have been a second regulation size rugby field / soccer field. And the cricket pitch was supposed to be placed right in the middle of those two fields, not encroaching on either, but sort of tucked in there perfectly. So something's happened in the translation of this plan, I think. And this cricket pitch has been installed in the middle, but violating the original plan in some way. There was something lost in translation so that it is now encroaching by 1.5 feet on both of the fields, making them basically unsafe and unusable for rugby or soccer at this moment for regulation play. Students have been practicing on them, and as you can see in this picture, this reflects 80 students practicing, which happens at least 3 times a week. And they're very close to this concrete, which is dangerous. We have a lot of new players this year, and there has been a couple of times where the coaches have actually had to yell as kids run right towards the concrete. So right now we have no regulation size fields, and meaning that we can't host tournaments, we can't play home games, and there is some question about whether it's even safe to practice on the fields. So the impact is pretty significant. It's impact to 110 Vanier student athletes. So there are 3 rugby classes at Vanier, so classes for credit, as well as a junior and senior team for both boys and girls. So this is about 110 students. And as I've said, we now can't host tournaments or have home games at the moment. There's also a huge community impact. So many of the clubs use the Vanier fields because the only other regulation size field is in Cumberland. And it is in high demand, as you probably all know. And we're sort of being pushed out of that opportunity as well. So now we have thousands of kids needing access to rugby fields, and we really all of a sudden have almost none. So this is putting not just our Vanier kids, but thousands of other kids per year out of field access. There's also a financial strain because now that we can't have home games or tournaments, we're going to have to travel more and bus more, meaning our kids are missing school, families are paying for more busing, and staff are having to get coverage for the days that they're away from school. There's also accessibility challenges. So families and students who have had this opportunity to watch their students play at Vanier now are not able to. So particularly for seniors who might never ever get a chance to play a home game again, and for our youngest players who really benefit from the confidence they get from playing on their home field and having family and friends come out after school and watch. It's a pretty big thing. The home field advantages can't be overlooked either. So having that home field advantage is really important for our kids, and it builds, school spirit and team morale, and really is a community event. As you probably all know, Vanier is a big rugby school, a legacy of excellence that is really unparalleled. The girls' rugby program is by far the sort of the best rugby program on Vancouver Island. We've had 4 provincial banners in the last decade. A lot of past players from Vanier have gone on to Team Canada, and lots are getting full ride scholarships and scholarships all over Canada and the US, which is pretty exciting. And our boys rugby 2 is a really amazing program. Our boys 7s team are headed to Florida soon, and they have great 7s and 15s teams as well that have been playing at provincials. And this bottom pictures I've included because this is my middle daughter graduating last year, and that's Steve Fagan in the background bawling. He hugged each of his rugby girls. He was the first one to congratulate them when they graduated, and he is like a family member to us. He is way more than a coach, and we live on Hornby, and I know that Steve is just a phone call away if anything happens with our girls at school, and it means so much to me. He really goes above and beyond, as does all the coaching staff at Vanier. And so for us, rugby is like a family. It's a community, it's a family, it's a legacy, and it's helping build these amazing young girls and boys, of course. I'm sure many of you have been exposed to rugby, but maybe not. It's a really special sport that is all about respect and teamwork, inclusivity. What I loved when I first watched rugby, girls rugby, was that there are girls of every size and shape. It's very body inclusive, background inclusive, culturally inclusive. It really teaches resilience. These girls are so tough. They're the toughest girls I know, and there's no way I would rather my girls grow up than with this in their back pocket. It's really changed lives. I've had parents reach out to me in the last couple of weeks and say, I'm not sure my kid would even be here today if it wasn't for rugby. And those are powerful stories of the impact rugby has on the lives of boys and girls. And it's just something that we can't overlook, the impact of this sport. I think I basically spoke to this, this growing need for safe regulation-sized fields in the Valley is, the demand is just growing. So it's actually growing exponentially. So over the last 4 years, the numbers of youth in the Comox Valley Rapids program have doubled. And, you know, we just can't keep up. We don't actually know where we're going to put these kids. Like this week alone, we have minis that are supposed to be playing. We have nowhere for them to play. So it is a community issue as much as it is a Vanier school issue. So we have lots of questions. I'm not sure you can answer them, but they start with sort of the approval and planning questions. Was it formally approved for this cricket pitch to go there at this time in the space that it's currently in? And if it was, by whom? If no, how and why was it constructed at the time that it was? We're also sort of questioning the location and suitability of Vanier for this cricket pitch. We couldn't find any youth cricket programs in the Valley. We're not sure if there's a youth cricket need that we're not aware of. The design and functionality, we're interested in understanding why a concrete surface was chosen when mostly cricket pitches are made of more traditional natural surfaces. We're wondering if the pitch meets regulation dimensions and standards, and does the group who utilizes the pitch have the $2 million liability? Also curious about accessibility. What is the intended schedule for cricket play? Obviously not within school hours, which is, from 8 to 5 o'clock, which leaves evenings and weekends. If games are on the weekends, how will it impact other sports? This is not a sport that can happen simultaneously with rugby or soccer or other youth or community events because of safety issues. So cricket balls flying is not something that really collaborates well with other sports. So just interested in understanding how bookings will work with a cricket pitch between two of the most in-demand rugby fields in the area. I think it's also really important that everybody thinks that having a cricket pitch is a really great idea. No one's opposed to it. Just wondering about the location and whether other locations could be considered. And I guess the elephant really in the room is really whether it is being considered that this concrete pad be pulled out altogether. So what is needed? So what we're asking for, what we think is needed is 2 regulation-sized fields for hosting games, tournaments. and to secure safe practice environments. So that means a 68-yard width, and that the youth of the community are prioritized. So protecting access to the fields, we know how important it is. I think I've made that abundantly clear. And the other thing is that we're really looking for a swift resolution so that our kids can get back on these fields. They can have home games. We can host the tournaments that we've already committed to. And also the idea of protecting the initial plan for that turf field up at the top of the field area, you know, and not fixing this problem. And by fixing this problem, losing that turf field as well. I don't even know what the options are, but these are some of the things we've thought of. I went the wrong way. And finally, in your package, you'll see that you also have this letter of support from BC Rugby, and Marlene generously also made other copies, but I realized it was in the package and I didn't know that when I asked her to make the copies, so I'm sorry for the tree I wasted in making extra copies, but they're here. But BC Rugby has basically reiterated what I've said, but in a much shorter format. So that is about all from me. So thank you for taking the time and allowing me to come and speak on behalf of the community.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you to everybody who showed up as part of the rugby community, to be your support team, and to be here with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes. You might be in the hot seat for a little bit longer, if that's
Want me to?
okay.
Yeah, I'll sit.
And Jeremy, did you want to start out?
Yeah, if I could, first of all, thank you so much for being here, and particularly to the two students who are here supporting rugby at Vanier. We appreciate you, and anytime we have students at a board meeting, there's always, it's just special, so we're grateful you're here tonight.
Poet and Louis.
Yeah, Poet Louis. Yeah, and I think, you know, Genevieve, I'd love to just, you had us at hello.
Yeah.
You know, I really think that within the board package, there is a formal presentation from our Director of Operations around answering some of the questions that you listed in that slide. I want to just clarify as well that it was in May of 2023 that a proposal was brought before the board for the approval of the turf field, the second turf field at Vanier. And at no time has the board been engaged in any conversations around design or cricket pitch. So that is on staff. Where we're at right now is a result of staff and staff decisions. So I just wanted to, as the CEO lead staff member, taking responsibility that we're here, not because of a decision or approval that the board has made, but because of staff. Can
you clarify that, Jeremy? What do you mean?
So,
like the board didn't decide this, but somebody decided it.
yes,
Some staff that isn't you.
that's right. And I think without getting into too much back and forth now, I think Molly will have that in her presentation.
Okay.
What I wanted to get to that's not necessarily in the briefing note, and I wanted to make sure you had that if in case you didn't want to actually stay for the whole thing, was just to say that we have got to a place where we can confirm that there will be a 68 meter, and I want to clarify because yards is different. That's 62.
Meter. Did I say yards?
You said yards in the presentation, 68 meter.
Okay.
68 meters is 62 yards, which it currently is.
Oh,
62
yeah.
yards.
Well, then we want to get that
Yeah.
right.
But, so I just wanted to share that there will be, the rugby standards will be moved in the second week of spring break to reflect a 68-yard
Meter.
Now I've gone backwards.
It's okay.
It's going to be the regulation size rugby pitch for this season, and a commitment that there will be a full-size rugby pitch forever at Vanier. Now that may mean, right now we're hoping that doesn't mean the removal of the cricket pitch, but that is not off the table if that's what's required to facilitate that. So I just wanted you to know that before you left, that there will be. I also want to note that staff has connected with BC School Sports. The only time that the BC School Sports regulates size of field of play for rugby is in provincials or zone playoffs. So you can host, even if it's less, which it won't be. But just to clarify that league games, like rugby pitches are a kind of a wide variety within BC school sports, but without that 68-yard regulation field, you would never be able to host zone championships, would never be able to host provincials, and obviously that is not sufficient. So I just want you to note that, and that yard, that will have a 3-yard buffer between any concrete pitch. And I will also point out that one of the things that really escalated. Yeah, thanks, 3 meter. I don't know. I got a little hitch there. Yeah, thanks. It will also be covered, so it will not be exposed concrete. Just to note that we'll make sure that that safe is more safe. But I just wanted you to note that there is a commitment to ensure that the 68-meter regulation field will be established by the second week of.
That's wonderful. That's great news. Thank you.
And trustees, any comments, questions, curiosities for Genevieve while we have her?
Comment. Fantastic, comprehensive, thorough presentation. Thank you very much. And to all of you for joining us.
I also had a support team to make this presentation. Courtney and I stayed up late one night and whipped this off.
Short amount of time, it was well done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and I just wanted to say thank you, as also a daughter who also plays rugby as an adult. She is also changed her life. So thank you for advocating.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to listen.
Like we said, you're welcome to stay,
Okay.
but no pressure.
We're going to talk all about emergency preparations.
And next, would you like to do your own introductions?
I'll 2 seconds just to connect.
Okay, while Jay is connecting, it looks like it's a team presentation tonight with our Associate Superintendent Jay Dixon, our Director of Operations Molly Proudfoot, and our Director of Information Technology Josh Porter, and our Manager of Communications Craig Sorokin.
Wonderful.
We have chairs for all of you, but we'll see what you guys have organized.
Well, before we start, I'd like to let everyone know that if the ground starts to shake during our presentation, or, there's an emergency, we go down the stairs here and by the front gates. The sign is not quite up yet, but the gates are our point where we muster together. If for some reason those doors, there's a little bit of rubble there, there's another exit right over here, and we go wide around the building and meet at the gates. So kind of setting the tone of our meeting today. We have a team, our Manager of Health and Safety, unfortunately could not make it this evening, but he's part of our team that we have here. We've got a brief presentation, which is kind of timely with some of the rumblings on the West Coast that we've had recently. And we just would like to share with you some of our new revised kind of work that we're planning around emergency prep, keeping our staff and their families safe, which is another kind of piece of presentation that we did last month. I don't have the blinky dots, blinky arrows. I found that everyone was way too distracted last week. So starting off, we'll just briefly touch on about 6 different areas that we are embarking on as a new team around emergency prep. And this kind of all came to be when we had a cyclone bomb visit the Comox Valley earlier this year. And within one short evening, we had 3 schools, 2 that were out, pretty much one with no power, no communications, another one with a little bit of power and some communications, and another one that had a very large tree land on it. And we had to disperse our teams quickly to all these sites and locations. And I'm really thankful with all the staff, how they reacted, parents, the support during those incidents. But during our debrief, we felt that it's been some time since we've sat down as a team, working with families, working with our schools, and revisited, what do we do in those big emergencies? So one thing that we did was, well, we can't do this alone. You know, we have to work together. And during that cyclone weather events that we had, we found that myself, I was throwing generators in the back of my car with extension cords and driving out to the school with a Starlink, thanks to our director of IT. We had our manager of communications, you know, getting messages out to all the families. And we had our director of operations, you know, making sure that there's chainsaws in here, lights here, and all of our teams kind of reacting and responding. And 4 of us with the manager of health and safety thought, we should probably be meeting on a regular basis and really digging into these plans and being more proactive with our approach. So several months ago, we formed, we're still working on the name, the DIRT team, District's Incident Response Team. So we have scheduled meetings. Yeah, we're gonna get T-shirts made up, I think, only one. Where we invite guests in, experts in, and we're proactive around planning and designing towards the future. That way, it's not carried on one individual. And if we have a large event, we rely on each other. So we created a district incident response team. And this team includes a variety of departments across the school district, but not limited to that. We're going to invite people in, build our networks, depending on the situation. There's no one size fits all. So we'd like to grow out our meetings. We have scheduled monthly meetings that are mandatory. So it doesn't get put by the wayside. We have topics, including things like what I'll hand out shortly, some of our training, some of our messaging, some of our APs, inviting in fire, police, PAC, DPAC, others in, just so we can collaborate and work together. Other advisors, like I said, we contract a company called Hour Zero. We've been doing this for several years, quite a few years, since pre-COVID. And they have frameworks, training, and consultants that we can bring in to help us build plans in Comox Valley. And really, we want to be that response system. So if we have a school that's out of power, if we ever see, they're using some names like cyclone bombs or atmospheric rivers or whatever those big names are. If we have another one of those come across the valley, we'll be more ready to go on the fly to help our kiddos out, our staff. So I'm going to hand off because I can keep talking and talking. And Craig, our manager of communications, is going to talk about some of the pieces that connect to his portfolio.
Yeah, so I'm Craig Strachan, the manager of communications. Every time there's emergency, I'm the one working closely with folks on this team, school leadership often, on getting information out to our community and families. In recent months, it became evident that a lot of the information we had, our main source of kind of emergency information that we've been sending out of the district, become a little stale, as well as information. Took quite a bit of reading to parse through how to get specific information you might be looking for, whether it's a weather event or hold secure or another event where we have to have parents come and pick up students. So I've been working since essentially over the holidays. I started working on some rebranded materials, which is now on our website, some of it. You can kind of read through more consistent branding. It's going to be in line with where we're going with our strategic plan, as well as looking at up-to-date information for schools to put up, posters to have available, explaining what people should do, and kind of really clear, concise language when there's a hold and secure, when there's a lockdown. My first day in the district here, we had a SWAT, which is when someone faked a school emergency. So I think we had 3 that week alone. It was kind of like right into the hot seat here when I started. But we have to take every little call super seriously, and we respond accordingly. And when there's these events, We do a review, and part of the review is realizing that the information and materials that we're using to share with parents needs to be refreshed and kind of more clearly articulated. So that's what I'm working on. It's a work in progress. So I thank Deepak and various parents who provided feedback on, when there's an emergency, some questions they might have. I'm working on making that really clear for folks when they go to our website, what they can do when there's a weather event, what they can do when there's a whole and secure, how they should act. Of course, we don't encourage families to come down to schools when there's emergencies until we ask for a controlled pickup. But stay tuned. We're going to be having more consistent branding. We rolled it out over some of the weather emergencies and the snow days, so you see some of that consistent look and feel, whether it's a cyclone bomb or a snow day, trying to give it a nice look where it's clear, articulate information about what does that mean when we say there's a lockdown per se, and what people should do. So that'll be coming out as we move forward in the months ahead.
Thank you, Craig. So another layer that we've been working closely on, and this is our manager health and safety slide, so I hope I get it right. We've really taken a look at, over the past year and a half, our emergency supplies. And I just want to give a shout out to Sean, who I recently started working with, and some of your guidance and advice through Deepak. We need to be prepared and make sure that our sea cans aren't empty, have some basic supplies and food in them. And when you have 24 locations, we need to make sure that they're all taken care of. So last year we did an inventory of all the goodies that were placed in the sea cans pre-COVID. This was initiative pre-COVID. And we found that some sea cans needed some love. Other ones were great and well taken care of. And we are now embarking on getting some comfort foods, some basic food supplies in the sea cans. Some had it, but after 5, 6, 7 years, that food wasn't in very good shape anymore. So we've been also comparing to our manager of health and safety has been doing comparisons to neighboring districts in terms of what they have in their sea cans in terms of emergency supplies. There's tools, there's gloves, masks, a variety of things. I know our packs have been very supportive in past years. Really, the next steps are building some shelving, better ventilation, and we've been working to get some food in there sooner rather than later. So the commitment is to have some basic comfort food that'll get us through, hopefully, until parents are able to come pick up their kids. And other than that, you see a couple pictures that our manager of health and safety put in. We're really thankful of our JOSH committees. So that's our health and safety site committees, employees that are helping with this project across the district. So yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Josh, all right. Not my committee previously, by the way. So we have a number of methods of communicating. I'm sure everybody has seen, we have school websites. You probably have gotten a text or an email alert when your student maybe skipped a class. And you got that alert at the end of the day. So we use a tool called School Messenger. This system, we can get a phone call message out within a matter of minutes to the whole district. We can do texting, we can do app notifications, emails. This system is all tied to email addresses and cell phone numbers that are registered with the school already. So if you're curious to get on board with the texting, which we've sort of just stepped up a little bit more recently, you just have to text yes to 978-338, as long as that cell phone number is on file with the school already. If it's not, contact the office and get it on file.
Oh, and that's where we take a pause and have the parents in the group.
Yeah. Share that out there.
Please share, truly, please share that out. We've had various emergency situations over the past year or so, and that has done wonders in terms of emergency messaging. So yeah, the more people that can be signed up, the better.
And this is a tool we use for snow days, even an incident down to like a bus running late or something, we can get a message out right away. people tend to be looking at their text messages more often than email and such, so. We also do regular testing of our emergency radio systems. So every site has a emergency VHF, UHF radio system installed. So we have regular testing of that. We're also in the process of upgrading the hardware we have for a couple of satellite phones available in the district. They're used for remote field trips, but we also do use them in the event when we know such a storm of some sort is coming. We'll stage them at areas we think might be problem. Miracle Beach, we've had some fun experiences with this year. We're also looking at backup solutions for phones and internet. So right now, our phones all run over the internet. It's all very centralized. So we have backup systems at the main data center, which is at our board office, keeps everything running if the power goes down. But it doesn't help us in the situation when there's a fiber line cut, which we did have at one of our schools this year. So in that situation, we have 2 satellite internet systems that we can roll out to schools. And we're just revising that program right now over spring break. And really with the idea that we can provide phones and or internet in some limited capacity in a school to provide those communications. And ultimately looking at it that if one of these or multiple methods of these systems are not available to us in whatever the incident might be, at least one of them will be, or at least get things started. As well, our websites are not hosted in-house, they are external, so we need to work on them, share information that way. We can do that without, concern of an internet or power issue here, so.
Thank you, Josh. And you've got the best picture of all of ours.
Yeah, I get operational response, which is the fun stuff. Like when a tree falls on a school. So we're first response when I say operations. I'm speaking on behalf of the operations department. So one of the things that's inclusive of that is rapid damage assessments, which is kind of exactly what it sounds. You get to site, you assess the impact, you identify the needs, and you prioritize your response. So in the case of puntledge, part of that is your mitigation strategy. So reducing impact. When the tree fell, our custodial charge hand notified the manager of custodial services and sent a video of the water coming through the ceiling of the strong start room. So the ceiling was crying, sobbing, and it was just an all hands on deck response to reduce the impact of that. So that is getting the custodians to suck up as much water with wet vacs, bringing in dehumidifiers and fans. And then you go to your remediation, which is controlling your risk. So part of that assessment is figuring out, okay, who can come to site based off of how safe it is. And that really involves kind of communicating with the senior leader team. Communication's a big part of that. In the case of Puntledge, we decided kind of early on in the morning of that day that we would close the school so we could just get a better control of the risk. And then you bring in your professionals. So in the case of Puntledge, it was a structural engineer, an arborist, BC Hydro, oh my gosh, hazmat testing, roofing contractor, claims adjuster. They were all on site within hours, which is great. We have a fabulous network of people that respond quickly. So we were able to assess what needed to be done. And then you go into the restoration part, which is figuring out when can we allow some of those controls to come back in, like students. Students were able to come back the next day. And then you start restoring the space. We usually like to leave it in a better condition than we find it or it was previously. And I'm happy to report in the case of Puntledge, that space is looking better than ever. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And last but not least, is really the training, the preparing, really moving into scenarios. Last week, a couple of us met with all the other community partners across the valley, fire, VHA, all the towns and cities, you name it. We met to start creating a network where we can work together if there's any larger events or smaller events. I think one of the themes coming out of that meeting last week was we can't work in silos. We really need to de-silo and work with our partners across the valley. If there is ever a larger event, we're going to need each other. And we, as a team, are committed to building the networks. And that was a theme from our previous meeting that we had with all of our emergency prep partners from around the valley. We need to work together, build networks with each other. Next year, we're continuing to move down more scenarios we want to practice with schools, with families, with staff. We like to remember, we find that we really need to get into situational debriefs. Talk it out before and after something occurs. Because that's how you learn to improve things moving forward. And really use our contractors' skills and knowledge, hour zero, to get back into that work. That is a really brief presentation of the important work that we want to embark on in the years ahead and to help keep our schools safe.
Thank you, team.
There we go. And appreciative of the team. Thank you.
Absolutely. Trustees, any comments, questions, curiosities? Trustee Kate.
Thank you for the great information and that one there, but just a question, and I know this is probably outside your realm. Transportation in the valley can be interesting and tricky at the moment. And right now we have two bridges that connect East and West Courtenay, and over the Atmospheric River we had a number of years ago. We had one bridge that was shut down completely, one that was partially done, and another one that was impacted. So in your work and your planning, are you part of that process looking at because you have those two bridges, there's three, there's Cadence Street, 5th and 6th Street, those three bridges go down. Part of there's the other ways of getting to and from the East and West Courtenay. Would that be part of that work that you'd be doing and ensuring the busing, transporting students will be included as
that was
backup?
a hot topic in last week's regional meeting from a variety of partners, the bridges and transportation. So it will absolutely be work that we consider. I know Hour Zero from my predecessor, Paul Berry, has already some plans built into our district response. But absolutely, we will need to revise that and dig into how do we mobilize students depending on where the emergency is. But I also see that one as a regional piece. And it did come up several times in last week's regional meeting. The more we can learn and work with our partners in emergency, the more we can take care of each other.
Questions? Trustee Masak, then Trustee Aldinger.
Thank you. When you say scenarios to be practiced throughout the year, I was wondering, can you give us some examples? I mean, I'm sure most of the people in this room remember hiding under our desks for the earthquake, which is what I did when I was in school. So just wondering, what are some scenarios that we can expect to hopefully see this year maybe?
Yeah. I know Craig mentioned one with student release. I think that's a really big one. We'd like to get a little spicier, use that word, in terms of we've already had one request to try to design one with community around forest fires. So I think we'd like to get somewhat creative in the many handouts, the sample handouts. We do need to make sure all of those are practiced thoroughly. And really just start theming them out to schools. I'm not thinking large scale scenarios immediately, but building up our confidence in practice. It's really wide open at this point.
Exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple just quick questions. Maybe I missed this, but you mentioned contact with the greater community. Is that the CBRD's emergency preparedness team?
Is that the name of the
Yeah.
group? But it's
Comox Valley Emergency Management Team.
Okay.
yeah, but it's even larger than that. There's about 45 people, organizations, and emergency response groups.
So is that something the whole team, the whole DIRT team attends, or is there one contact, like lead contact for that?
It used to be one lead contact, actually two, but they've retired. So when we all five of us put our names in, and we're welcome to attend, and we offer to host affairs here for their next meeting.
One more, slightly different direction. In terms of the update about the sea cans and supplies, I'm curious, in terms of reviewing, what's in those containers every year and what needs to be replenished or gotten rid of, is that something that falls to the district team, or is that something that falls to individual schools, both in terms of the reviewing it with, regularly, but also the replenishing?
It's our manager of health and safety has been overlooking it as part of his portfolio, working together with the staff, Josh, the joint occupational health and safety teams who have been doing scheduled inspections. And then in terms of the food, we're fortunate to utilize some of the expertise of our food services manager to help us build a plan for replenishment and ensuring that nothing will expire, and before things expire, they go back into the mouths of our kiddos in schools. So we have kind of a replenishment plan we put forward, and it's that way the onus isn't on packs. And we found through some of our work that there was some variety in how our packs supported school or not. So it just creates this equity across the system. So we brought it in. Sorry, I'm asking all the questions.
Yeah. Great, thank you all very much. This was just the tip of the iceberg on this. We look forward to learning more as you go through it.
Well, we'll have you participate in a scenario next year.
Oh, your fault. All right.
During a board meeting.
Losing people. Moving on our agenda, we're now going to turn it over to the superintendent for his verbal report.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard to believe that we were here just 2 weeks ago. Lots has happened in between. I'll share a few of those highlights, but before I do, I just wanted to acknowledge that as we work towards fulfilling our commitment to ensuring a safe space for all students, that we are working on improving both how we respond and address gender-based violence, as well as how it's reported in schools. We've had a dedicated committee exploring the realities and lived experiences of students in our schools. And as the committee continues to collect information prior to providing recommendations, I'm encouraging everyone to fill out the gender-based violence survey that is front and center on the website, and which will be mailed to all parents later this week. I wanted to talk about a few of the highlights. Even just by talking about a few, inevitably there will be a few misses. So, but I'll capture a cover. First of all, the district spelling bee. Literally, the Brooklands gym was buzzing. Lots of excitement as top spellers from across the district came together for the annual district spelling bee. I wanted to say congratulations to Nathan Plonka from Airport, Chase Peterson from Brooklyn, and Gemma Leong from Valley View. And also tonight we have one of our guest judges, Dr. Vivian Collier here. So I was asked last year to help with the judging, but I actually couldn't pronounce the words for the students that were going to spell them. So I don't think they asked again. I wanted to just take a moment to express my heartfelt congratulations to everyone that's been involved in the district musical Once Upon a Mattress. Sold out shows, glowing reviews. Production brought joy, laughter, and unforgettable moments to the community. So thank you to the cast, crew, musicians, volunteers, and the many staff who brought this magic to life. I wanted to acknowledge our wrestlers. They went to provincial wrestling championships in Vancouver. 23 of our student athletes competed against 750 wrestlers from across the province, and they made us proud. The GP Vanier's girl team placed 3rd overall. It sounds like athletics for ladies at GP Vanier is solid all the way through, so that's awesome. And so I just wanted to say congratulations to our wrestlers, particularly our senior wrestlers. And tonight to acknowledge a special congratulations to Coach Ben Stathura, who has been named BC Wrestling Coach Association's Coach of the Year. His commitment and leadership are deeply appreciated and have made a lasting impact on the success of Comox Valley Wrestling. Wanted to acknowledge it's wonderful to have people from Hornby tonight. The Hornby Island Community Schools grade 7-8 class just wrapped up a powerful week of hosting students from Quebec City who were here through the YMCA Youth Exchange Canada program. From the opportunity to witness orcas to engaging in the Kwakwala language games under the stars, the exchange was rich with learning and connection. And so thank you to the entire Hornby community that gathered around to support such a meaningful learning experience. And our students will be heading to Quebec in May. I'm not sure they'll see orcas, but we'll see what happens. I'd like to take a moment too to acknowledge the outstanding achievements of our students in the 2025 Skills Canada competition that was held at NIC in Campbell River. We had incredible success. Our students were just amazing, earning impressive numbers of medals in categories such as animation, carpentry, cabinet making, culinary arts, digital art, electronics, photography, welding, and more. At the secondary level, students brought home multiple golds, silver, and bronze medals with strong showings from GP Vanier, Highland, Marcusfeld, and Brooks Secondary. In the elementary competition, students from Aspen Park, Brooklyn, Cumberland Community, and Enter stood out in events like Lego Mindstorm, Gravity Cars, Spaghetti, and Wind Turbines, proudly presenting our district with several podium finishes. This event celebrates hands-on learning and real-world skills, and our student success is reflected in their talent, their hard work, and the guidance from our incredible educators. Congratulations to all those students who participated. And then finally, a big recognition to an acknowledgement. Congratulations to our VEX robotics team, who recently competed at the Island Regional Championships and walked away with major wins, including tournament champion titles, as well as the Innovate and Amaze Awards. 2 of those teams have qualified and will now be heading to the World Championships in Dallas, Texas this May. The hours of dedication, which represents over 500 hours per robot, are a testament to the talent and determination of our students and their mentors. So across academics, athletics, arts, and innovation, I want to thank everyone, educators, families, coaches, and community members who support and celebrate our learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the international student briefing note. I'm not sure who's walking us through this tonight.
Unfortunately, our district principal of international student education was not able to be with us tonight, but the briefing is on page 29. It's simply looking to have the board approve the increases in fees for the 2026-27 school year. Given time, the fees for 25-26 have already been implemented, and the actual fees are outlined for you on page 3. So if you have any questions, we can answer, and otherwise it's just looking to approve those.
Is there any questions or curiosities from the trustees? Go ahead.
I was just kind of curious why, beyond, is it the obvious inflationary pressures, or is there anything more that is driving a price increase?
Yeah, my understanding is it's just those cost pressures. And I mean, 26-27 is a little bit of a ways away, and it is possible that we would have to come back if there were some sort of significant changes that might be happening around the world. But other than that, it would just be your cost pressures.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't.
Sorry, the briefing note, it says to maintain competitiveness with other programs on Vancouver Island. I'm assuming that means other international school programs?
So we're aware of what other programs are charging in terms of their fees as well. And they would be increasing their rates for the same reason.
Thank you. And is it my understanding that when, with the cycle of the opportunity for international students and the timelines, that approving the rates for 26, 27, that approval time doesn't align often with some of our other rate increases. So approving it now will have our international program ready for when they start looking at enrollments for 26, 27.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks. I'm seeing no further questions. Is there a trustee that would like to?
I can move that motion. That the Board of Education for School District 71 Comox Valley approve the fee increase for the 2026-2027 school year as presented in the International Student Fee Briefing Note dated March 11th, 2025, to maintain program competitiveness, enhance student experiences, and ensure financial sustainability.
And seconder, please. Thank you, Trustee Leslie. Any further questions?
I will just make one sort of silly comment that goes towards this, because I do have a couple of friends that have homestay kids staying with them. And I was sort of impressed to see that amount go up, because I do know that, you know, kids eat lots of food, and food prices are on the rise. And I think some of the families will be a lot more open to having kids and being able to support them to their fullest extent with a little bit of extra help, for sure.
In favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Thank you. All right, career program update. Our Associate Superintendent Jake Dixon will give a careers program update for us. Is there anything you wanted to walk us through on this, or was it for information only?
Really wanted to acknowledge some of the work happening from our staff. It takes quite a bit to put together some of these specialized business programs that are occurring the second semester, and to continue to support our staff and trying to get our youth these opportunities. So one, the superintendent stole my story around Skills Canada, so we've heard all about that. The other are some trades sampler programs that our students are participating in, a little description of each. And quite often these opportunities lead to full-time work and apprenticeships for our students. The last two, one is a growing in interest new program course that's called Emergency Medical Responder. That's occurring in Highland and Isfeld now. Very popular, and our students are really excited about some of the career trajectories that they could move into, including firefighting, nursing, and a whole pile of careers. And then we are seeking just student interest to see if we could put together a new tourism event and management package course. We're hopeful that may run, and if it doesn't run this year, we'll be in for next year.
Trustees, do you have any curiosities or comments? I have one, and it was on page 40 of our package regarding the EMR responder program. I noticed it was the only one that had fees attached, and my curiosity is if a student can a student seek support for those fees? How does that work?
Great question. The first offerings have had minimal fees because we received grant funding from the Justice Institute. But moving forward, there will be approximately, I believe, a $300 fee for the course. And if students cannot afford it, we have pathways to make sure that it's covered.
I have a quick question, and that is, do any of our trades programming focus on the green jobs going forward, like the installation of solar panels and like retrofitting buildings and that type of thing? As that industry seems to be growing.
Yeah, not at this point in terms of our transport or our sampler programs. Those are partly funded by grants from Skills BC. However, some of our dual credit options, we've been exploring some micro credentials with the colleges moving to branch to that cleaner space. Yet we don't see much grant opportunities at this point to offset some of the costs. So, seeing more emerge, and I'm really optimistic that the colleges around us, as they open up maybe new opportunities, we can connect to them.
Yeah, and I was also wondering if there was any curiosities about agriculture, some samplers in agriculture, considering our valley has thankfully been a long-standing community supplying food to the areas. And with food instabilities and such. I also feel like it kind of falls into the tourism almost as well, because we're seeing more concepts like agritourism and things like that.
Yeah, definitely there's a fit. The tourism, what our careers program is aspiring to do is to look at the Comox Valley, what we have around us, and try to build specialty programs that connect to the valley. And that's where the tourism one is really kind of open-ended. Food, hospitality, restaurant, culinary. Yeah, there could be connections there, and I agreed. I'll take that back to the team and have them put that on the dream list of can we explore agricultural items. Work experience is also a great one. If you know anyone that is interested in taking on a student in a specialty area, or parts of the team. Work experiences that are authentic and not typical fast food. Nothing wrong with that, but experience.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. And also thinking like things like marine as well, because we have a large marine industry in this area.
So it's an exciting part of our school district, our careers department, and really our kids, our students, they have so many opportunities right now.
Got another question over here, or comment from
Yeah,
Tracy
just
Howell.
something quick. I guess I've always assumed this, but the question just kind of dawned on me, like when you're creating programs like this in the district, like are these like viable, high-paying opportunities for students, or are these like noticeable gaps within our community that we're trying to fill, and that's how the partnerships are growing? Like, could you just speak to that a little bit more about how these sort of things come about, and like how, where the priority is as far as like, you know, how they sort of develop from start to finish?
So the ones that we showcased here, the three kind of traditional trades, those are historical, probably over 10 to 15 years we've been running. Comox Valley really been forefront in showcasing how we could do traditional trades. Prior to my time here, so prior to 4 years ago, I learned about the Comox Valley's reputation around taking, receiving grant funds from the ministry and designing programs that connected to those traditional trades, which were really of need at the time. We were seeing a reduction in those grants, and we're seeing across society kind of more of, as fellow trustees mentioned, kind of more specialty areas emerging. So that's why we now, as a career department, are trying to re-envision, what are the needs of the community, what are the needs of our employers, And, are there other specialty areas that we should be looking at? So that's work in the next couple of years of taking a deeper dive into our offerings across the valley, and are there offerings that don't quite fit anymore that we need to rebuild, or are some just like have it dialed in and students are moving around, moving forward to take it into meaningful jobs, which is great as well. Yeah, it's as society shifts, needs and community, we should be, according to our strategic plan as well, reviewing that.
All right. Seeing no further hands, I'm looking for a trustee to lead the motion of receipt.
Sure, that the Board of Education for School District Number 71 Comox Valley receive the Careers Program Update Briefing Note dated March 11th, 2025 as presented.
And seconder,
Excuse me.
please, trustee Eltinger. And last chance for question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. I do appreciate in the briefing notes the connection to our strategic plan. I just want to note that I appreciate that in all of our briefing notes coming forward, the links to the strategic plan. It's helpful to see that alignment. And next, for the folks that have stated, we are going to have a briefing note by our Director of Operations, Molly Proudfoot. Just give her a second to go over to the speakers section. And the topic tonight is P-Vanier Secondary School field use community. Thanks, Molly.
I'm really hoping this camera is at like this close range.
And then just
Check out my nostrils.
And then Molly, while you're setting up, just for members of the public who might not have attended before, we do have a brief section at the end of our public meeting for questions regarding topics of our public meeting tonight. And the questions get directed to the board chair, and then I direct the questions as appropriate if we have somebody to answer. So there is that public question period to the board at the very end of the meeting. Just, I'm not sure if you have an agenda package with you, so I just wanted to make sure that you knew that, and the other members of the public, they know the routine. I just wanted to share that opportunity.
Thank you. So firstly, I'd like to apologize to the students and families that this has caused some anxiety, as well as the people in this room. I'm hopeful that the information provided tonight, however, will provide some reassurance. And really the package lays out a pretty detailed timeline. So for the purpose of the presentation, I'm just going to focus on sort of the key points. So I did my best to include the background and context of what has occurred from concept through to present day. So there will, was mentioned, there will be an opportunity for questions and clarity at the end of the presentation. In 2023, the need for a second artificial turf field and cricket pitch was identified, and JP Vanier was selected as the preferred location. So fast forward to May 2023, the school district's board supports and approves the construction of a second artificial turf field on JP Vanier grounds. Note that this does not include design review or approval of the artificial turf or the present cricket pitch. So then in partnership with the CVRD, the school district works to create what's called the Comox Valley Field User Group Advisory Committee. So that committee comprises of sports groups that are listed here, which do include the Comox Valley Kickers rugby, as well as school district representation from operations and school staff. So in those meetings, SD 71 and sports groups had an opportunity to identify their preferences and needs for the proposed artificial turf field. So if we look at this is page 44 of the agenda package, you can see an overview of the criteria that was identified. The legend to the right shows the proposed location of the artificial turf field, the proposed location of a rugby field. Number 3 is the cricket pitch here in blue, and 4 would be a soccer field. So through that process, an entente was created between the CVRD and the field advisory group that included that criteria. And it's important to note that out of the engagement, a need for the school to have a 68-meter wide rugby field was unfortunately not captured in the process of this consultation. So if we go forward to page 45 of the package, you'll see what eventually became the preferred design option for the artificial turf, which did include the proposed location of a cricket pitch between fields 2 and fields 3. Note that neither of these fields were set to be rugby regulation size, which is that 68 meters. So then if we proceed forward from that, the CVRD works to secure funding. And in March 2024, the school district lays out fields 2 and 3, so these 2 fields, in accordance where the proposed artificial turf pitch is going to go, as well as where the cricket pitch is proposed to go. And in the process, we relocated the school's rugby uprights from the lower field to field 2. So I did this illustration. It's just illustration only to kind of give you a sense of what that looked like last year. So it resulted in a marked out field of 62 meters, which is the rugby pitch, a safety buffer zone of 3 meters. The gray is the location of the cricket pitch. Last year it wasn't in place, this year it is in place. Another buffer and a 57-meter wide soccer field that could also be used for side-by-side rugby. So the Vanier proceeded to have a successful season in the 2023-24 school year. No layout concerns were raised. However, it's important to note that the concrete at this time was not laid. So then postseason, SD 71 proceeds to install the cricket pitch. This work was punted outside of the artificial turf contract. CVRD did provide funding, and SD 71 provided the labor to install the pitch. So now we're at more recent times, where in February concerns were raised that the school needs a 68-meter wide rugby field for regular league play and tournaments according to BC school sports regulations. So upon receiving this information, operations immediately engages the CVRD and Binney and Associates to investigate and reach out to BC school sports for some clarity over regulation size rugby fields. So then we're now. Since then, we have received, as Jeremy mentioned, clarity from BC School Sports that when it comes to field sizes, they do only regulate for provincial championships and playoffs, and that they do allow for league and tournament play to safely occur on fields less than 68 meters wide. Now, regardless of this fact, SD 71 and the CVRD are working actively with Binney and Associates to see if there's room to still achieve that 68 meter wide field by pushing the artificial turf field further north. And we hope to know if that's going to be possible in the, in the next couple of weeks. This investigation does involve delaying the tendering of the artificial turf field because the CVRD did have that preferred design and we're ready to go to tender with drawings. So it's going to delay that process as well as initiate some further value engineering to potentially support moving the turf field north if there is room for it. So in the meantime, however, Operation is proposing that we move the rugby uprights that are currently located to facilitate this layout to facilitate a 68 meter wide play field. And we're planning on doing that in the second week of spring break, if weather conditions allow. So then if we do hear back from the CVRD and they are unable to find the area needed to support that 68 meter wide play field by moving the turf field further north, we will then have to consider the removal of the cricket pitch. This is the less preferred option out of the two because the total play area of this field will have to be reduced to fit the 68 meter wide field plus the recommended 5 meters of buffering. So as well as it will remove what we believe to be as a positive recreational asset to the community. However, we do prioritize school sport over community play. So the takeaways is that the school district is committed to meeting the needs of the school by facilitating a single 68 meter wide rugby field, knowing that the second artificial turf field that is going in will bring a huge value to the school and the community. It will serve 6 different sports groups, or I should say sports, not groups, including a practice pitch for rugby. And it will bring long desired amenities to the Vanier fields, which includes year-round washrooms, storage, and lighting. So this asset would not be possible if it wasn't for the CVRD and the community support. And I would say the lessons learned are that within these partnerships and collaborations, we just need to really be sure that we're identifying needs versus preferences to ensure successful consultation and results. So that kind of brings us to now, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Trustees, Trustee House?
I just had one question. I was on the CVRD Rec Commission sort of when this was all kind of happening, and I remember some talk about the cricket pitch, and at that time Vanier wasn't listed as an option for a location. Could you speak a little bit to, sorry to put you on the spot,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering, like, there was, I think, 5 other locations originally planned as options, and I just wondered how it came to be at Vanier.
Not aware of multiple options being proposed to the Rec Commission for the location of the cricket pitch, more for the location of the turf field. So there was some talks about where that could be. I do know that the CVRD and the school district worked together to review potential locations for a cricket pitch. And one of the requirements that's kind of unique for cricket is that they need a 120-meter play radius. So if we're looking at the agenda package, and if I zoom in here, you can see kind of faintly in black that is the cricket radius of play that's required. So it's often that cricket pitches are installed between two play fields because they do require such a large radius. So I know that some sites were just eliminated purely based off of not having the area to support that.
Okay.
And that's what really narrowed it down to Vanier, as well as it did complement the design work that was happening with the artificial turf at the same time. So I think it was considered at the moment that there would be some bang for the buck to, come together with the community and talk about this location in conjunction with the artificial turf field.
Like for the CBRD to have.
For the CBRD, yeah. Yeah, and for it to be a multi-use play center, for the valley, where you have this cricket pitch along with the two artificial turf fields and the track. Yeah.
Comments or questions? So, Trustee Masak, Trustee Aldinger, then Trustee Leslie.
Thank you. Can you share a little bit about how the organization of the field use with the cricket pitch taking up both the field 3 and the field 2?
Yeah.
How can we assure that our students and our community youth are having a priority in booking and utilizing those spaces,
Right.
So that we're not taking away from our students?
Yeah, good question. So the presently with this, the city of Courtenay is responsible for booking out community play fields, which are inclusive of school district. And these two Vanier fields are a part of that, as well as the cricket pitch. So it would follow the same prioritization as all our other schools that are rented out to community groups. And part of that is that it's not available usually 5:30 p.m. on operating days. And that priority is given to school district. So we would be looking at that same structure. Yeah.
Trustee Aldinger.
Yeah, go ahead. My question was answered. That was my question. I wanted to know about looking at the play radius. I was like,
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I was like,
Yeah.
Fields.
Yes, yeah. It really, it's a small fixed with the runway, with the cricket pitch runway being a fixed, but you do really need the two play fields. So you can't, to your point, have simultaneous play. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, was definitely part of what I was curious about. My other curiosity was our presenter commented about the concrete aspect of the cricket pitch as well, that's often, or perhaps most of the time, they're natural materials, and that may create a risk to people playing on the adjacent fields if they're running onto the concrete. Do you know anything about that, what that decision was made?
Yeah, so when it comes to the cricket pitches, clay can be used, but typically not in our climate. So you'll find clay pitches in like South Africa and India, but not so much locally on the island. Most of them are concrete pitches. You do need a hard surface for to facilitate the bounce of ball that's needed for cricket. So it was reviewed with the CVRD as well as the Cricket Club and Binney and Associates on what that surface would be. And concrete was determined that it would be the best fit for that. For reference, Campbell River Carey High, it's a secondary school, has a concrete pitch between two of their play fields that are used for soccer and rugby. They actually have a smaller safety buffer zone than we have, and it's been there for 10 years, and there hasn't been any incidents that I've been made aware of. I asked the direct question. And we would also be looking, we're putting turf over top of the concrete. So we're not able to do that because you need a certain temperature. So that's why you see right now an exposed concrete finish, but that's not the proposed finish result. Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
I just had one more question that just came to mind because I was listening to the presentation earlier. And I guess my like sort of thought as we move forward with the statistics of like rugby growing as a sport, particularly a women's sport, particularly on the island, particularly in the Comox Valley with so much success, how we're going to manage that group's growth with only having one provided field space that can do sort of that level of competition. I didn't realize that the only other space in the valley to play rugby at that level was in Cumberland. And I just know firsthand how busy that field is. So I was just, I guess, just noting that concern as things develop and as we grow bigger, like there's not really an opportunity to sort of fix that second field situation.
Yeah.
Or what that might look like throughout the district or other properties that we have or something.
Yeah, that's a very good point. With the artificial turf going in and with field 2 and 3 sizes, they're, regardless of the cricket pitch and regardless of us moving the artificial turf field north as far as we can take it, there's not enough room for 2 68-meter side-by-side rugby fields. But it has generated a conversation about where else in the district could we provide that. Yes.
Yep, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the questions. We have a briefing note. We don't have a motion to receive briefing note, I don't believe. But we probably should.
I can make a briefing note.
Okay.
That the Board of Education for School District Number 71 Comox Valley received the George P. Vanier Secondary School Field Use Rugby Community Briefing Note as presented.
Thank you. I seconder Trustee Maysack. All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
For that.
That's okay. And if there's any hands that don't raise, then I will ask for opposed, but when it's unanimous, I don't. Just being mindful of the time, we've got 30 minutes left and 15 minutes of that reserved for public question period.
Okay.
Or having to extend the meeting, just knowing we still have a couple pages left of our agenda to get through, and 5 administrative procedures that our Secretary Treasurer and maybe our Secretary Treasurer are gonna just
Given the amount of time, I don't know that it's necessary to walk through each of the updates for our administrative procedures, but they are on pages 48 through 78 of the agenda package. And I wouldn't say that any of the updates are substantive in nature, but they're more to update and be in line with our practice. I'm just looking at our Assistant Secretary Treasurer to see if you would, yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer.
And so then if there are questions, we're happy to answer, and if not, there's just a motion to receive as information these updates.
I just had one comment, and it was regarding the AP 515, the purchasing one, under 4.2.3, and on page 65 of the agenda, and it's just nice to see in writing practices of our district to buy local, provincial, and Canadian when possible for the services outlined in that administrative procedure. A shout out for the good work that we've already been doing here.
Thank you.
And looking
I'm
for,
happy to move the motion.
okay,
That the Board of Education for School District Number 71, Comox Valley, received for information on March 11th, 2025, the following updated administrative procedures: APs, AP 510 Financial Accountability and Audits, AP 511 School Trust Funds, AP 512 Cash Procedures, AP 515 Purchasing, and AP 526 Donations and Grant Application Administrative Procedures.
thank you very much. A seconder, please. Trustee Leslie? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to board standing committee reports. Our next open committee of the whole meeting will be on April the 8th, 2025 at 7 p.m. here in this room. And our topics for that meeting are inclusive education and the review of Foundational Policy 1. And there's no course called Inclusive Education 101, but it is going to be an overview, quite an extensive overview of our inclusive education program. And we encourage all of our partner groups to ensure that you have representation at that meeting, because it is your opportunity for us to have collaborative conversations. So I will probably be reaching out to see if we can ensure representatives from each of our partner groups at that meeting. So thank you for that. And then next is looking for a motion, or back up me up a little bit. We have our ad hoc policy committee board report from February 18th, 2025. Just wondering if anybody would like to speak to it before we move receipt of the report. And it is on page, where is it?
79.
Flipping my agenda fast enough, or my package fast enough.
I think it might be worth noting that at that meeting, we had finalized foundational statement 1, but wanted feedback from the committee of the whole. And then, of course, at the committee of the whole, our last one, it got postponed till April. So I think it's
okay. Thank you for that.
a short summary.
Great. Thank you. So who would like to move receipt of the report?
I'm happy to move it, that the Board of Education for School District Number 71, Comox Valley, received the ad hoc committee board report dated February 18th, 2025,
Thank you,
as
Trustee
presented.
Carl. Seconded by Trustee Aldinger. Last opportunity for comments or questions. Seeing none, all those in favor of receipt? That's carried. Thank you very much. The next ad hoc policy committee meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And then moving on to our next board standing committee report, which is our gender-based violence working committee board report. Shannon. Sure.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll make it brief. We continue to meet on a monthly basis. We're now at the point where we are starting to review notes and summaries of the discussions and meetings we've had with various community organizations, as well as groups within the district, although both continue in terms of meetings as well. As Superintendent Morrow pointed out, the kind of big news for this month is that we do have an anonymous district survey that is posted on our website. It is front and center in our rotating masthead. It has both a QR code to access it, but can also be accessed just through clicking with a mouse or a finger. Basically 2 questions. How can our schools better prevent sexual harassment, sexual assault, and other forms of gender-based violence among students? And then secondly, how can our schools better respond to disclosures and reports of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and other forms of gender-based violence among students? And then there is also simply a catch-all. If you have other suggestions or commentary, you're welcome to provide that to the committee. I will say that in every communication, including at these board reports, as well as online and on posters that are circulated in schools. We've made very clear we are not looking for personal accounts and reports. We have provided a list of resources and supports, including our own counselors, crisis lines, and community counseling supports if anyone is wanting to make that type of report. The committee is basing its work on a looking forward style approach of what can we do better and what can we as a board do to assist those in our district who are doing this work. Our next, the survey will be open a couple of weeks in April. We're not quite sure of when it will close yet. There's been a little bit of a delay because there's been a little bit of delay in getting the message out. We hoped that it would be wrapped up the end of the first week of April in time for our next meeting, which is April 16th, and we'd hope we'd have all the summaries by then, but that may get a bit delayed just because of a delay in getting the message out, and of course spring break, which we all celebrate that. That's it, unless people have questions.
Yeah, thanks so much for all the work getting all that out. It was exciting to see all the posters when I was at the district PAC meeting, and I took some out to some schools and they were received really, really well, and the students were excited to kind of go put all the different kinds of posters up. There's probably 10 different styles that are out there for everyone to have a look at. So,
which actually reminds me, I do want to just say thank you very much to our committee member, youth and family worker, Jason McLean, and also to our manager of communications, Craig Sorokin, and director of technology, Josh Porter. Jason created many of the posters. It was took a lot of time, and of course, Josh and Craig have helped me digitize and make all that work. So thank you both as well.
Thanks, and I appreciated knowing that it's going out in an email to all the families as well. So that was really great information. All right, so now we're moving on to board business, and we have a trustee report from the the British Columbia School Trustee Association virtual provincial council meeting. That was on February 22nd, and Shannon is our representative on that council.
Yeah, so I attended that meeting. It was a 3-hour remote meeting, just looking at a fair number of aspects of the BCSTA business this time of year. The most kind of pressing and important aspect for our team to be aware of is that there are going to be 9 extraordinary motions that impact BCSTA's constitution and bylaws. And the idea being that generally extraordinary motions get discussed on the floor of the AGM, which occurs in April. But this time, because of the interconnectedness of the different bylaws and the need for, previous consultation with council and possible further consultation with council around these proposed changes, BCSTA is requesting that people look at them well in advance of the AGM, ask any questions prior to March 10th. And then if there are any amendments that are being proposed, the request is that those proposals get submitted prior to March 28th. There was some discussion at our VISTA meeting this past weekend as to whether this time frame is required and can be imposed on trustees. There wasn't really resolution of that, but the request still, the friendly request at this point is ask your questions by March 10th and submit any proposals for amendments by March 28th.
thank you.
On that note, it isn't under board business, but we did have our Vancouver Island School Trustee Association meeting this weekend in Victoria. Trustee Caton is the president of the association, and I wasn't able to attend all the meeting because I was in Vancouver with meetings, and then I had other commitments. But I appreciated what I attended. There was an amazing presentation from the Souk Food Council. I can't remember, but it was from the Souk School District, but with their partners in the work that they do with food. And it was pretty amazing. And Janice, it takes a lot of work to organize that with the small executive that you have. And so thank you for all the work. And if there's anything that you'd like to share that that was a highlight for you tonight, if you'd like to.
I'd just like to acknowledge and thank our Director of Technology, Josh, and Focus Ed. He's really, really hard on, because just before Josh came on, we had 47 grade 4 to grade 7 Cordova Bay Elementary School students performed Beauty and the Beast for us. So they did a presentation, and then Josh had to come on after that. He wouldn't dance or sing for us, but he did a presentation. One of the concerns school districts have provincially, and I think the provincial government's looking at, is digital and cybersecurity. And there's a great deal of talk and interest in that. And I know that Josh in our district has been really, really hard on that. I'd like to acknowledge the work that he does on that one there, because cybersecurity has been 4 to 5 school districts that have been hit. And under that non-disclosure clause that they have, we will never know what happened on that one there, but student and staff safety is paramount. And that was a presentation that we had, and he was kind enough, Colin, with his application to do that. The other presentation we had was on community collaboration with daycare and early learning with the Sanders School District. So the community consultations, that was a nice conversation that one there too. So it was great to have about 65 trustees and that for 2 days. And we had to go tour of the second oldest high school in North America, was Vic High. So we had a number of students walk through the hallways, and it was the historical value of Vic High and why that school had that seismic renovation instead of being brand new was paramount for that tour that we had. I saw my mother-in-law and my father-in-law who graduated in 1948. Their pictures were still on the wall. It's kind of cool. And it's open for the public, a historical library. So if you're ever in Victoria on a Tuesday and Thursday, they have some volunteers there. Will bring you the history of Vic High. And they also had a flag. They've just retired it. It's 100 and some odd years old, with a star of every student that died in one of the wars. And they hang it outside the windows and it goes down. It's really amazing to see that. So historically, I just say, if you're in Victoria and you want a history of the schools in our province, that's a really good school to go to. So it's a great meeting, and for those who attended, it was great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
That's my report that I was going to give you next month.
Okay, cool.
But I will tape it up for you.
There you go. So just looking at the time, I think we're gonna be okay. The next item on our agenda is board correspondence. And it was the letter from the ombudsperson, BC, to myself as the board chair, and as well to the superintendent. We handed it out in hard copy at our February meeting 2 weeks ago, and offered our opportunity for discussion at this meeting by the trustees, because they didn't have it some time to digest it. Just wondering if there's any trustees that have any questions or comments regarding the letter. And just looking at our minutes from the last meeting, our superintendent, along with other superintendents across BC, received the letter, and it's regarding the exclusion of students from BC's K-12 schools, with the intent of assessing the extent of exclusions and ensure that they are administered fairly. So just curious if there's any questions. There is not. Oh, there is.
Is that something that we track at this point, or are we looking, kind of waiting to see what the investigation looks like?
Yeah, we're fortunate in that I know, having just been in Vancouver with other superintendents, that our district is and has been proactive in tracking, has all significant paperwork for any student that's on a part-time program. And so we were able to actually fulfill the expectations of the report fairly easily.
Can I ask what the time frame is? Like, have we received the outline of what the investigation will look like and or reporting procedure is?
Yeah, so there was a request to school districts for a fairly significant amount of data to be returned to the ombudsperson for April 9th. The president of the BCSSA, the Superintendent's Association, Rohan from Chilliwack, had written the ombudsperson for an extension due to the amount of data that was required, and so it's been extended till a date in June. We are still ready for the original submission date. That data has been collected and is ready. Again, thankfully, we had been tracking, so it's a little bit was expedited. Still significant amount of staff time to fulfill that expectation. From what I picked up in that presentation, I think it'll be 12 to 18 months before we actually see the outcome of the investigation due to the thoroughness with which they are intending to go about this work.
Thank you. Any other questions or curiosities or comments from trustees? Okay. Seeing none. It is 8:45. And we are on the public question period to the board opportunity. And I'm going to look first to see if there's any questions online. And then I'm going to look to the public, see if they have any questions regarding any item on the agenda. Sean?
I have a question around emergency preparedness. Curious as to, we had a recent earthquake, and I understand there were no evacuations during that earthquake. I'm not suggesting there needed to be, but what is the standard in the district for there to be evacuations? How is that determined, and when would we know whether evacuation is required?
Okay, great question. I'm going to look to the superintendent or the secretary treasurer to see if they have an answer for that at this moment.
Yeah, I don't have a definitive answer, so I would need to figure out what that threshold would be.
So we will find out and we will respond. Are there any other questions? Sean?
So I don't have questions, I have comments. Are those allowed?
Is it a friendly comment?
It's okay if it's not.
Constructive comments? Yeah.
Three comments. One, I'll start off just by reiterating what Shannon spoke about the gender-based violence survey. Please keep that open for as long as possible. It's important, and the timing's kind of unfortunate because it's right before spring break. Everybody's checking out. So, for DPAC, it's something that's important, and we're going to try and boost it, kind of the best that we can. Second is that today is March 11th, or in Japan they call it 3/11, which is the 14th anniversary of the Great East Japan earthquake, which killed about 20,000 people. That disaster is still not over. The Fukushima nuclear reactor is going to end up kind of like Chernobyl. They can't get at the melted core. So it's going to be, another maybe 30 or 40 years before they're able to clean that up. So I'm heartened to hear the action that's being taken by the district, because when I first spoke to Dr. Morrow, I was trying to figure out how am I going to broach this subject about emergency preparedness. I came across a DPAC letter dated 2010, so it's a 15-year-old letter, and it had everything that I wanted to talk about. So it's a long-standing issue, and it's good to see that it's slowly but surely the gears are turning and we're heading in the right direction. My last point gets back to the beginning of the meeting with Chair Waite acknowledging kind of a recent media stories. And I just wanted to point out, unfortunately, over the past year, when you take kind of all the media reporting in a whole, the reports kind of tend to throw the school district under the bus, and the school district's not in charge of the narrative. That's not to say that the district should come out and start getting antagonistic, but I think, there are ways to kill detractors with love by showing them the excellent work that's being done in the district when it comes to school food. Because when you think back when Kyle Timms just happens to be sitting there, did the food scam a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Right.
You take that as a baseline. We had nothing. And now here we've got something. You've hired a district level coordinator. There are more food services workers. There are more new programs. I've heard from parents that aren't at the new program. They just rave about it. And then there are going to be more programs like that rolled out at other schools. So in terms of communication, right, you can kind of push back that way by just showing like what the really good work that's going on and then showing them the good work that's going on in the Valley.
Thank you. I know I have to be careful about accepting comments on behalf of the board, so thank you for linking them to the agenda in a supportive way to enable future comments from the public at public question period. And thank you. And just curious, is there any other questions? Did you have a question? I thought you might. Okay.
Yeah. Probably a bunch against my child's wishes, but I want to say thank you, Molly, for really clarifying things. That was a really helpful presentation. Having the timeline was really helpful, and to understand that it actually wasn't a mistake. It was just actually an oversight that nobody knew that it needed to be the 68 meters. I think it was super helpful to listen to your presentation and to have it outlined and have it here for me so that I can share that with families and players and the community at large. It did raise a couple of extra questions. One is that I think rugby has grown since this plan was first initially considered, considerably, exponentially. And so my concern is that cricket games take an extraordinarily long time, and they're taking up both fields when they play. 5 hours, 8 hours, like cricket games are very long. And it's not just one field they're booking, but they're booking both fields on weekends when the demand is the highest for community and high school rugby. So it's just something I want to say out loud to all of you. This is going to be an issue. It's going to be an ongoing issue. And I don't think it's all your issue to solve, but it is a community issue that we need to consider, that this cricket pitch is for adults. There are no youth players at this time that we know of. And we have hundreds and hundreds of youth every weekend in space. Cricket will take for an exceptional. Understanding how priority is given is going to be really important to the community. And it's just something that really came up for me when I heard that I figured that nobody would be able to simultaneously play. But not only that, the games are very long, and they do in fact take up both fields in an area where we just don't have any other fields to play on, and we are really being pushed out of the comfort of the field. So I'm putting it out there mostly as a red flag. I so appreciate that you guys are solving this problem. I hear from you that it is being solved, and we couldn't be more grateful. So I really want to come at this from a collaborative approach, but I'm looking ahead, and I just know that the next issue is going to be around booking.
Yeah. Yeah. I can speak to
So,
that.
so is that, okay, go ahead. So we just have to.
So just leave the chair.
The chair.
Trying both shorts.
Yeah.
I was trying to give you a view. So I think we've identified something important that the CVRD and the district is already aware of. And there's a great conversation around field allocation policy. The CVRD and the school district are in line with prioritizing youth sports over adult play. So we're already compatible in that sphere. But we do have to look at the Vanier field now more wholesomely, considering that if we are able to keep this cricket pitch and there's the artificial turf field, like how these things relationally are going to work together.
Right.
So yes, to answer your question, it's a part of a bigger conversation, but we do prioritize youth play. So that would be factored in regardless.
Comforting. Yeah, I'm glad it's already on the table. I figured it was, but I felt that I needed to stay to the end just to put it out there in case it was. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for staying.
Thank you, Chloe.
So if there is no more questions.
To make a motion that the Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, adjourn this meeting.
Second. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you.